What's up guys, and welcome back to another episode of my F1 2020 My Team career with Honda Racing, and we are back for episode number 3 here at the Vietnam Grand Prix, the first time at this circuit, and I'd like to thank you guys so much for the support on the Bahrain video. If you didn't watch the Bahrain video, I'd highly recommend to do so, so click the I button in the top right corner if you haven't done so. Unfortunately, it was a little bit of a disappointing race for us where we only managed to finish P17, showing that we have a hell of a lot of work to do, but it was quite an exciting race and there was lots of battling. Now in terms of the activities, we've got quite a lot of time to fill, seeing as there's 2 weeks between Bahrain and Vietnam Grand Prix. So yeah, I was sort of toying as to what to do, but the one I was immediately drawn to was the power equipment upgrade. Obviously, being Team Honda, you know, we're quite attached to our power unit, so I want the team to have a good bit of morale. So I decided to go for that, and also a bit of chassis team building, because we did some aero work last time, which boosted their morale. So I thought, yeah, power unit and chassis would be good ones to go for this time. And also thought it was a good idea to visit the sponsor HQ whilst we're out in the Far East. Evidently, they're based over there. So yeah, keep everybody happy. Now advancing through the timeline, I just had my fingers crossed that all of these upgrades wouldn't fail. And there you can see the ECU power unit upgrade came through, the chassis under tray came through, as did the front wing main flap. So all three are fitted and ready to go for this Vietnam Grand Prix. Now when we got to the track, we were greeted with some interesting news that there is some rain forecast for race day. So that is going to be interesting. As you can see, dry for qualifying and wet for the race. So going to be difficult to know what setup to go for. And then, yeah, going on to the R&D, now that all the upgrades are fitted, we're still the second slowest team. And in fact, it's a good job that we've made all those upgrades. Morale's good everywhere apart from durability, so we'll have to take care of them next time. And when we look at the progress history, the sort of R&D chart, we've made quite a big leap forward, but a lot of other teams are bringing upgrades here to Vietnam as well, and that midfield is just a complete cluster. So yeah, the aim has got to be to get to that midfield as quickly as possible. In order to do that, we've got to do some upgrades. So yeah, using those resource points that we gained through the activities and last race, decided to firstly go with a chassis upgrade, which should be with us just before the Dutch Grand Prix if all goes well. Was toying with going for an aerodynamics upgrade, seeing as we are still the second slowest, but yeah, decided to actually go for a powertrain upgrade and try and get on the same level as the Mercedes power units. So that's what we've got in development at the moment. I think the gearbox one should be with us before the Chinese Grand Prix, and then the other two will be with us before the Dutch one. So here we are then, starting off the weekend with our practice programs, kicking it off with the track acclimatization, and you are viewing my very first lap around this new Hanoi circuit, as you can tell by the several bites of the cherry into that first corner, or second corner. But yeah, the first time at the hairpin at the end of the massive straight, we completely missed the braking zone and have to go down the escape road, even with the racing line on. Now we do use the racing line for this entire race weekend, so apologies for that, but yeah, it's a new track which I was sort of struggling to get to grips with, as you can see in this final sector for the first time, missing a couple of gates. And yeah, it's just such quick left-right corners, so you really have to know what direction you're going in. But the second time round, we managed to do a little bit better, and you can see nailing a lot more of the gates. Still not perfect lines, but of course we're still gearing up for qualifying and the race. But yeah, we still managed to get purple on the track acclimatization at just the second time of asking, of course helped by the racing line. But now going on to the race strategy program. Obviously this is the most important one, sort of gearing up for the race. And we were finding a lot of time on the exit of that roundabout style corner. You can see the delta going up by about 0.2 of a second in that section of the track. But we were really struggling with this turn 2, which is sort of the opposite of Shanghai's snail section. It sort of slowly opens up instead of closes. But yeah, we were really struggling with that, and like you saw there, 2/10 down on the Delta. But fortunately, we managed to make up the time in the final couple of sectors, and you can see half a second quicker than the pace, and managed to go purple on that. Now moving on to the qualifying programme, you can see that we're actually a little bit down on the Delta coming into the final sector. And we've really struggled with the qualifying pace programme in the first couple of races, actually failing it both times. But yeah, despite being down after the first two sectors, this final sector, not completely nailing it, but the way that we have the downforce on the car means that, yeah, we get a reasonably good final sector, and despite our best efforts to bottle it at the final turn, we do manage to go green on that one. And with all those resource points in the bag, we have a little interview after the practice sessions in which we pick our first rival. So depending on who you pick as your rival depends on how much acclaim you gain. And I thought, you know what, we'll go for the AlphaTauri of Pierre Gasly, who we've been battling a little bit in the first couple of races. It's high difficulty, but of course gets us a lot of acclaim, and that should help us level up and hopefully get a decent number of sponsors and just new bits on the car in. So then, this is qualifying. Always exciting times when you're at a new circuit, but it's a little bit daunting when you're going into a qualifying session knowing that you're not the greatest on the track. I just about know where the track goes at this point, never mind sort of what the quickest way round it is. But as we come out of the pit exit, this is what it looks like on the track, so it sort of feeds out into turn 2 right on the racing line, which will be interesting come race day. But yeah, we come now around the final couple of corners, gearing up for our final qualifying lap. Currently sat in at P17, and this is the first uninterrupted lap on board at this brand new Hanoi circuit. And we come now towards turn 1, braking at the 100 metre board, trying to get it slowed down in time, not actually clipping the apex on the inside, but it sort of allows us to open up turn 2 a little bit as we go slightly off the track, but it doesn't invalidate our lap time. And we're a little bit down on our Delta, but we do manage to get a really good propulsion out of that turn 3, 4 and 5 complex. And we are just under a tenth of a second up as we break into turn 6 now and into the roundabout turn at the far end of the circuit. You just got to slowly wait for this corner to open up and flick it through turns 8 and 9. We actually lose a bit of time there compared to our previous best time with a little bit of wheel spin. But now it's just about chilling and sort of gaining your composure for the hairpin at turn 11. You saw in the practice programme we missed our braking point, but we don't do so this time and get it turned in beautifully, clipping that apex on the inside, which has allowed us to gain the slightest amount of time on our previous best. We're pretty much dead level with our previous best qualifying time, as we actually go down to P19 as a result of other people putting in faster laps. Our teammate Matsushita down in P21. We are flicking it through this final sector beautifully, and about a tenth, 2/10 up compared to our previous best, so we're really doing well in that left-right quick section as we now come into the penultimate turn at turn 22. Flick it left into 23. The camber drops off slightly at the end of that corner. We're 0.3 of a second quicker than our previous best time, and that is good enough for 18th place, which isn't too bad, to be honest with you. We've out-qualified a Haas car, and I'm reasonably happy with that. We've out-qualified our teammate by nearly 0.4 of a second, and yeah, pretty close to getting out of Q1.
Welcome along to the Vietnamese capital of Hanoi, a vibrant city built on the banks of the magnificent Red River. Today it's the backdrop for the latest round of the Formula One World Championship, with a circuit specifically designed to encourage overtaking opportunities. I think we could be in for a cracking race today. A lap of Hanoi circuit then, 3.4 miles around the Vietnamese capital, 23 corners and a wet circuit today that will challenge our drivers in each and every one of those turns as the close barriers loom invitingly on the outside. With me today, of course, is Anthony Davidson. Now, can I talk to you about Sebastian Vettel? That was a great win in the last race. Can they keep that momentum going this weekend?
It's always nice to come into a Grand Prix weekend on a high, but your expectations are based much more on your practice and qualifying runs. So it's the momentum from those sessions that they'll be hoping to carry into the race today.
Let's run you through the driver grid order for today's exciting race. Sebastian Vettel has a clear track ahead of him today. He starts in pole position, with Charles Leclerc alongside. Looking down the rest of the grid, we have Hamilton, Bottas, Max Verstappen and Albon, Norris, Sainz, Ricciardo and Esteban Ocon, Stroll, Perez, Kimi Raikkonen and Giovinazzi, Gasly, Kvyat, Romain Grosjean and Buchan, Magnussen, Russell, Matsushita and Nicholas Latifi. That's it then, it's time to go racing as we head to trackside for today's race.
As expected, the rain has come down on race day. And although it says heavy rain in the air, we are starting on the intermediate tyres. So that'll be something to monitor through this 14-lap race. We're predicted not to have to pit at all. It's saying that making a pit stop will be 13 seconds slower. And of course, sacrificing track position as well. We've taken a little bit of fuel out of the car and it's now time to go on to the formation lap for this Grand Prix. And yeah, the Mercedes behind the Ferraris once again. And as you can see by the Drivers' Championship currently, it is a Ferrari man leading the way in Sebastian Vettel, ahead of Hamilton, with Lando Norris doing very well in P4. And then going on to the team standings, Ferrari leading Mercedes in that as well. With ourselves still yet to get off the mark this season, and we'll be looking to get a points finish as soon as possible and get ahead of AlphaTauri. But it's going to be difficult starting from P18, but it's a rainy race, so anything could happen. And it's lights out and away we go here in Hanoi, and a lot of spray at the start, which means that we're struggling to see. We're going to go to the inside now for turn 1, which is such a tight corner, and everybody brakes early, so we gain a couple of positions, but we are going to be incredibly tight into turn 1, and that means that we're going to sacrifice our exit as we go into the tightening turn 2, which then turns into turn 3. We've got an AlphaTauri car on our inside. Our teammate Matsushita has already got ahead of us despite him starting it down in P20. So it's a brilliant start from Nobuharu Matsushita as he's looking to get in the slipstream of Kimi Raikkonen up ahead. We're just going to try and brake nice and early here for turn 6 and take a nice wide line into the roundabout corner at turns 7 through to 9. But there's a little bit of battling going on behind us, which gives us a bit of breathing space. We now go on to the massive, I think it's 1.1 kilometre straight, maybe even longer than that. But we are losing a little bit of time to Matsushita, probably about a tenth of a second. And Kvyat is closing in on us in behind. So Matsushita goes for a dive down the inside of Kimi Raikkonen and Antonio Giovinazzi. And we make it 2 moves on Raikkonen, who was really conservative, as were both of the Alfa Romeos, really, into that hairpin. As Matsushita up ahead is trying to challenge Sergio Perez, but I think he's just going to have to slot in behind. Meanwhile, we're on the outside of Kimi Raikkonen, but that gives us good traction on the exit on this wet track. And as we go through the left-right of the final sector, very much like, I'd say probably Sector 1 at Suzuka, a little bit less like Silverstone in the sense that it's probably more low speed, especially in these wet conditions. But not too bad a first lap from us. We've gained a couple of positions, but our teammate Matsushita up in P14, gaining 6 places. That would be brilliant for the Honda team if our Japanese teammate can get a good position. We take a look at a replay of the start and see exactly where Matsushita gained these positions. His start was alright, but everybody just sort of went to the middle of the track, and that allowed him to go right around the outside, which gave him, by the looks of things, really good traction through that first corner, and then gave him the racing line really for turn 2. So that is where Matsushita made up his positions, but yeah, his race pace not quite up to the scratch of the Alfa Romeos, as you can now see Antonio Giovinazzi trying to go right around the outside of Matsushita and get P14 back, and he's going to get a lot of grip on the outside line as Matsushita gets pushed to the inside, and that is a lovely move, to be fair, from Giovinazzi. And yeah, Matsushita now falls back into 15th. So us two Honda boys, Matsushita and Button, in 15th and 16th place. And you can see a lovely little camera angle going through this final sector, seeing the wheel movements of Matsushita. But yeah, as we now go on to lap 4 of this Grand Prix, we are closing in on Nobuharu Matsushita in our second Honda car. As I apologise, that was a terrible cut from ourselves. We just turned in way too early, and yeah, the game let us get away with it, which is interesting. But nonetheless, we come out of turn 9 on to the main straight now, and we are in the slipstream of Matsushita. I was going to say in DRS range, but of course no DRS active, seeing as it is a wet race and looks to stay that way for the 14 laps. We took a little look there at going to the inside, and we do so again into the braking zone, but we're just going to stay behind our teammate for the meantime. I think if it was another car, we might have been a little bit more aggressive there, but with it being our teammate, of course, we want to keep both cars on the track and try and bring these in as high a position as possible. So we're staying ahead of Kimi Raikkonen and also one of the Alpha Tauris of Daniel Kvyat, and I think both of the Haas cars are behind us as well, if I'm not mistaken. So we're doing pretty well considering the current performance of our car. The wet conditions seem to be playing into our hands. And the fact that the engine's been upgraded is a massive help on that huge straight. But yeah, we're just going to stick behind Matsushita for the meantime as we now flick it through the final corner to end lap 4 in this race. And you can probably tell by the conditions that they're really deteriorating. The heavy rain that's falling is bordering on sort of full wet tyres at the moment. But yeah, it looks as if we're really coping with the conditions a bit better than Matsushita, who is now about a second and a half behind Antonio Giovinazzi. But as we got a little bit of snap of oversteer through turn 2, we do manage to straighten things up now on the run down to turn 6. This little straight means that we used a little burst of overtake ERS, and as we come now towards the braking zone, less than 0.4 of a second behind Matsushita, and just down on our best lap time so far. We try and put it down the inside of Matsushita in the hope that he'll run a little bit wide and let us through, but no such luck as we go once again on to the long straight using our overtake ERS. We're still on about 60%, so we should be able to use a good burst of it in order to overtake our teammate into the hairpin, but he tries to force us a little bit wide. But we take the inside line now, which should be the perfect line here if we can get it all turned in. It's such a tight hairpin, but we do manage to get it all slowed down and ahead of Matsushita for P15 in this Grand Prix. But it's eyes forward now and focus on trying to close up to Giovinazzi, as Matsushita really struggling. He's fallen immediately into the clutches of Kimi Raikkonen. But as we ride through this final sector, it's a 2.8 second gap that we have to Giovinazzi, and we skip forward ahead a couple of laps onto lap 7, and this is our teammate Matsushita getting overtaken by Kimi Raikkonen, and he's got a little bit of a train behind him now as Matsushita, as Daniel Kvyat also trying to go around the outside of him, but Matsushita is going to try and take that inside line and force a Russian out wide. Unfortunately though, it doesn't quite work, and that's Matsushita now down into 18th place. So he was up in 14th, I think, at one point, and yeah, really starting to struggle now on lap 7 and lap 8 of this Grand Prix. For us, though, we're actually starting to close in on Giovinazzi, who has got Pierre Gasly, who, of course, is our rival, or who we picked as our rival, is just ahead of him. So, yeah, it'd be really good to finish ahead of him. We did qualify behind him, but yeah, if we can finish ahead of him, that'll be a good few points. And we're just going to ask about the weather conditions.
Heavy rain to stay a while. Doesn't look like it's moving anytime soon. Inters look like the best tyre for now.
So, as you heard there on the radio, still looking like intermediate conditions, but there you can see Sergio Perez, who is at the front of this little train that's formed, really struggling by the looks of things in his racing point car. Despite its obvious pace, and I think Lance Stroll is ahead of him at this moment in time. But yeah, a little train forming, I think, for P11, So although it wouldn't be points, if we can try and get to the head of this train, that would be brilliant, and I think would get us ahead of AlphaTauri in the constructors' standings. So now coming towards the roundabout turn, and this stunning aerial view camera angle really shows you exactly how much of a roundabout this turn really looks like. Of course, it is in real life when it's not being used as an F1 circuit. But yeah, just thought a really nice view with the palm trees, of course, in the middle. But now we're within a second of Antonio Giovinazzi, and although that doesn't mean that means that we don't get any DRS due to the fact that it's raining, it's good for the fact that we are going to be in his slipstream and hopefully be able to gain on him even further as we now break into turn 11. Yeah, we're just trying to stay within touching distance of this train as we go into the final 5 laps of the race, but it's so difficult to overtake without DRS on this game, full stop. You know, the slipstream effect that was obviously so prominent in F1 2019 has really been toned down, which is really good for realism, to be fair. But yeah, obviously makes it quite difficult to overtake. As we see, that's Nicholas Latifi out of the race, and a safety car, a full safety car, has been deployed. So we'll take a look in a moment exactly what happened there, but this is going to be very interesting and will really bunch up the field in the last few laps. And it was actually Nicholas Latifi that brought out the safety car. So you can see him here behind his teammate George Russell, and he went to go for the move, pulling off the racing line and spears into the barriers. We'll look at it from his onboard. You can see here gaining on George Russell. Goes to pull out, and so does Russell. Russell just slightly moves from the racing line. Then Latifi sort of, you know, craps himself and then just spears into the wall. So that was interesting. And yeah, we can see here we're just looking at our tyre wear on the gauge and we stick it in the wall. How amateur is that? We're now missing a front wing end plate. I was just literally looking at the MFD, but that is really going to hinder us in the final few laps. If we take a look at the front of the field, under the safety car, so it's obviously going to bunch everyone up, but it's still Sebastian Vettel leading from his teammate Charles Leclerc, with I think Lewis Hamilton currently in 3rd place ahead of Max Verstappen by the looks of things. But I was so annoyed when I stuck it in the wall there, because it's just going to be really difficult for us to obviously keep up with Giovinazzi, Gasly and Perez up ahead now. But we'll try our best. We've got 2 laps under the safety car, sorry, without the safety car, and you can see there it says prepare to resume racing. We've still got about 5 or 6 turns left, and at this point I was really struggling to get any sort of tyre temperatures, and we fell quite a way back from Giovinazzi, but fortunately the field bunched up again before the actual safety car line had been passed. And now we are going green for the final 2 laps of this Grand Prix, as we don't get a brilliant restart, as we're 6.5 tenths away from Giovinazzi in front and only 4 tenths away from Raikkonen behind. So we're going to have to close that gap as soon as possible. And now as we go through turn 2, we'll see exactly how much understeer we've got as a result of losing that end plate. And the answer is quite a lot, as Raikkonen already looks for a move down the inside of us, as we are getting a lot of tyre wear, and it's just not going brilliantly, as we've already lost a position to Raikkonen. We've got Kvyat and Grosjean both looking for moves on us as we brake quite late and almost spin Raikkonen around. Wow, that would have been probably a surefire penalty if we'd have spun the fin round, but fortunately we managed to hang it in side by side through turn 8 and 9 here. And now as we go through or come towards the kink of 10, we have got a massive train of cars behind us of Kvyat, Grosjean and Matsushita, with Raikkonen up ahead as we're closing in on him through that kink of turn 10 and towards the hairpin at turn 11. We're going to have the inside line here. Hopefully we don't understeer into him with that front wing damage. Fortunately we don't. We get it turned in and we are back up to P15, which it doesn't really mean anything, but we're just fighting for pride at this moment in time. Giovinazzi is 3.8 seconds up the road, showing just how much time we lose, with, to be honest, quite a small amount of front wing damage, and we nearly put it in the wall again. So it shows that on this game, if you lose just an end plate or a small bit of your front wing, it's pretty much done for you. You know, in the wet especially, we've lost nearly 4 seconds to Giovinazzi on just one lap. And that's a car that we were keeping up with and gaining on before the safety car period. So we've got just 1 lap left now as we bump the inside wall of the final corner at turn 23. And we are 4.6 seconds behind Giovinazzi and just 2 tenths ahead of Raikkonen as we now go into the final lap of what's been a pretty exciting Vietnam Grand Prix, it has to be said, and it is not over yet. So we're going to ride on board for the entirety of the final lap as the leaders already coming down to the roundabout turn at 6, 7, 8 and 9, and we understeer once again into the wall. The tyre wear and front wing damage has really taken its toll, and we are now an orange front wing, which is not good whatsoever. Raikkonen has passed us before the breaking point of turn 6, and I'm sure we're going to really struggle to stay with him through this left-hander because it's just understeer city, and as it tightens and tightens, we find it more and more difficult to close in. But yeah, we're just going to try and stick with Raikkonen, but it's not happening. 7.5 tenths away from him already, as we've got Daniel Kvyat just 1/10 of a second behind us, so surely he'll be looking for a move in to the hairpin, as that looked like a little piece of front wing on the straight, so maybe someone's had a bit of a shunt up ahead as we try and brake as late as possible to get past Raikkonen, but it's no can do, unfortunately. So I think we're going to have to settle for P16. Fortunately, Kvyat didn't try and move on us, and it's going to be very, very difficult to do so in this final sector. But still, we're going to ride on board and see exactly what happens as we see Raikkonen go off into the distance, unfortunately. But if we can hold P16, there's at least a little bit of pride that we've beaten an AlphaTauri and the Haas cars, as Sebastian Vettel already comes through to win the race, as we now come through the final couple of corners in our current position. Not a brilliant race, but not a terrible one. And the rain in Vietnam has brought us P16 as we come towards the checkered flag. An improvement on last race, not quite as good as Australia, but nonetheless good to get a race under our belt at the brand new circuit. So it's 14th, 18th and 16th for ourselves, with Nobuharu Matsushita getting driver of the day. That man, though, was the person that took the checkered flag first. Sebastian Vettel makes it 3 wins out of 3 for Ferrari, as Mercedes really struggling to get a stranglehold on this championship at the moment.
Ferrari are at it again. An excellent performance at today's Grand Prix, and they're certainly a team that know what they're doing out there.
Well, that doesn't quite mirror what's happening in real life. Ferrari, a team who know what they're doing out there. But nonetheless, in the virtual world on F1 2020, it's a 1-2 for them, with Sebastian Vettel taking the top step of the podium. And just P3 for Lewis Hamilton for Mercedes. So yeah, really good start to the championship for Ferrari. As you can see, Alex Albon was the man that finished in 4th, who managed to get ahead of his teammate and Valtteri Bottas in the race. Ricardo best of the rest in 7th, and Lance Stroll picking up the final point in 10th, ahead of Ocon, Perez, Giovinazzi and Gasly, which is of course the train of cars that we were following. But yeah, P16 for us, with a fastest lap that was up there with the people that were finishing in the points. So it's not all bad. We finished ahead of our teammate Matsushita, who I'm sure will be disappointed with 19th. As there you can see the driver's standings, so Vettel on top by 12 points ahead of Hamilton and his teammate Leclerc. Unfortunately, we're yet to get off the mark. Only 13 drivers have scored in the opening 3 rounds of the season. And there we are, Team Mugen in P10 still, behind AlphaTauri, but ahead of Williams. And yeah, we're just looking to get some points on the board, to be honest. But now we go to the rivalry breakdown. Equal with Pierre Gasly in the race. Unfortunately, we did get out-qualified by him though, so it's 4-5 at the moment in favour of the Frenchman. Plenty of time though to make that up, which I'm sure we'll be able to do. And the team Acclaim, you can see we managed to get up to level 5, which is good news because that means we get a sponsor on board, a new sponsor on board for next race. And we get the sponsor bonus from XXY for completing all of the practice programs. If you guys did enjoy this race, do make sure to smash a like down below and subscribe if you're new. Check out any of my previous videos if you would like to, but I'll see you guys in my next video for the Chinese Grand Prix. Take care. Bye-bye.